Yeah, so any water that gathers in the bilge will end up down here. The last owner put this bilge pump in. I recommend you get rid of it. I've never used it. If you pack the stern bearing properly when you leave the boat, you shouldn't get any water at all. And I'll show you how to do that a bit later. So that's all pretty good. It's all solid. Carry. So little galley here, little sliders. Could use a bit of a clean up. I gave it a clean up when about a year ago, but it needs another one now. I've recently painted up in here. There are saddlebags that were made specifically to fit up in here, and the tracks are still there. They could be put in easily enough. The wiring on the boat it's mostly okay. The nav lights need to be rewired, which is not such a hard job. The little panel is over here. It's pretty self-explanatory. DC outlets runs the little pressure pump here, and also the Autopilot. The depth sounder we use for the new Garmin plotter and depth sounder. Cabin lights runs the cabin lights. VHF runs the VHF. Instrument lights is the compass light, but also the single sideband. If you were to use the single sideband, you would have to put that on because that is hooked up to the tuner, and you won't be able to tune the sideband without that on. Navigation lights, as I said, aren't functional at the moment. The lights are still there, but the wiring has died. The Autopilot is there. So hardly ever been used. Sibrad TP22, more than enough for this boat. And all the connections are there in the cockpit. It's never really been set up properly. You can read the manual and you can set it up to give you more and quicker response times, which is probably what it needs. Last time I used it was a little bit slow, but I haven't actually got around to. But you can see it's hardly done any work at all. So so that's it. Both these berths, as I said, are full length. The squabs are in pretty good shape. We cleaned them recently, and I'll just show you under each one.
We use Vanish.
Yeah, so they've got lee cloth.
Oh, hang on. Okay. Cool.
So both these boats have got lee cloth to stop you rolling out of bed at sea if you wanted to use them there, and they're good quality. So up under here, there's a bit of paint missing here and there, but the carry's really sound. And the reason that's happening is because I tried to paint the boat with a 2-pack product, and it didn't like it, and it just chucked it off. But it's really only just aesthetic. It's the solar controller there. It's sitting on 13.5, 13.6 volts, and this is one of 2 batteries. And these generally stay pretty good and dry. And what I do is when I leave the boat, I leave a little teak block under them so that they are airing out. But just to show you what we've got, these pull out, and just spare belts for the engine, some tools, just bits and bobs that you might want, and it's quite a good space. And that just sits in there. Fluff your cushions up. On this side, same sort of setup. There's the radio down there. You can see that. I'll start at the back. Comes out. More storage, some grease for the stern shaft. Bits and bobs, books, first aid kit. There's a hand bearing compass there, spare fuses. poke around there. All the chain plates are on these hanging knees. They're pretty solid. I sisted the bolts come from the outside through, but I've put bolts from the inside that way, and that was just before the Tasman race. So they're pretty solid, but it's down the track someone will have to take out the old bolts, and I mean it's not screaming it to be done, but eventually that will happen, whether it's you or the next guy, I don't know. But the rig's certainly not going to fall over. It's pretty solid for a small boat, or for any boat actually. These knees are a carry, and there's 3 of them, 1, 2, 3 on each side. These are laminated ring frames that come around under here. Super strong, and like massive beams for a small boat. Same up under here, there's another laminated ring frame that comes around behind here. And the main keelson through the boat is massive. It's like this, and I'll try and get a shot of it. It's just super strong. So there is a bit of work to do up under here. I've done the other side. It's not a major to do it. It's just a little bit of boat building, and it just needs to be done at some stage. It's not, I mean, you're not going to fall through it or anything, but it's probably going to be an area sort of like this, and it's just where a bit of water has got in under the winch plate here. Okay guys, this is up front. Lynn's just going to show you the construction. It's really solid. Just pan up and under there, you see the main keelson beam coming down. Here, I'll just take the camera from it. Under here.
You can't do that, you have to keep it up. You have to keep it upright.
So it's stringers, deck frames, pretty solid. And super solid really for this size of boat. Up here is the opening port inside the actual locker itself. Yeah, not sure how much you can see. Gives you some idea. Yeah. And that's the anchor well forward of that bulkhead there. I just put a coat of varnish on these. They probably need to be painted again. It's wind vane, south steering stuff, and you see that bit of wire, that's part of the nav light wiring loom. It needs to be redone. Alright, under here, there's quite good stowage in there. The old skin fittings for the toilet ones there. And on this side, there's it's an old working sail. There's trysail storm jibs and the blue skirts that go down the side of the boat, what we call weather cloths, and another skin fitting for the toilet. They're all shut off at the moment, so it could be reinstated. Up under here it's just more storage, and same in here, we just put life jackets, and there's tools further in under there. Alright, so the boat has 2 batteries. In theory 1 house and 1 start battery, but the system is set up so that both batteries do both things, and there's an 80 watt solar panel that copes with most of your current draw, but you obviously can't burn lights all night and stuff like that. But to keep an eye on your battery power is this thing here, battery monitor. It's showing that battery's pretty well charged and that battery's pretty well charged, and it should be like that most of the time. And when the battery's running, obviously the alternator's charging up as well. But they are smaller batteries and they don't have a lot of capacity, so you need to watch your power consumption. You could always put in bigger batteries and more solar, that wouldn't be so hard. But I found that it's generally enough, you know, because everything's low wattage, you know, like your phones, etc. So to start the engine, we used this battery over here, and this is very important. That basically won't, if you get the key, which is actually a paring knife, that's the key, you pop it in there and turn it on, nothing will happen. No
Hang on, I'm just going to zoom in on that. Just, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
no and home. So under here are the battery switches. Now this one here needs to be turned off. That's off, so it could fall out. That needs to be off when the motor's not running. Really important, otherwise for some reason the battery drains out. So to start the engine, you flick it on. That battery there, I believe it's just a link to the other battery, and that just stays as is. I've never touched it. That's that little water tank. It doesn't hold a lot of water, but it holds some water. Okay, so I'll pop that down, pop that away. Now, when we get our paring knife and turn the key, then we have power. Okay?
Yep.
I'm just going to turn that off for now, and it just lives up there. And I'm going to show you what I do to start the engine. So I'll take these off, and I'll move this out. I'll just pop it down there. This is a little Yanmar YSE8. It's a little single cylinder horizontal piston. It doesn't have an oil filter, the little motors didn't. It has what's called an oil scraper. And that's this little lever here.
Yeah, I'm just coming in. You put your hands on the lever. Yeah, that's it. Cool.
That little lever there. And
yep.
what we do is we just rotate it a couple of times.
Yep.
And it has a magnetic cone. And I think what it does is if there was any little filings, like super fine filings, it collects them. I don't really know how it works. That's the oil dipstick.
Mind your left hand, darling. That's all.
And you can see there's plenty of oil in it. And the engine's, it's probably due for a change, but it's done hardly any work since I've had the boat up here. It's something you might want to do. And to change the oil, you just put a tube down there.
Move your left hand. Yeah, that's it.
And suck it out with a little pump. Even out of a soap bottle will be enough, into a Coke bottle or something. And from memory, there's not much more than a litre of oil, maybe a little bit more. But you'll know when it's empty, it'll suck air, and just top it, put new oil back in there until it's just covering the marks on the dipstick. And it should be done every 50 hours or something like that, or at least once a year, or maybe 2 times a year, depending on how much you're using the boat. But the oil will get dirty quickly because there's no because it's just the nature of the engine, industrial engines. Okay, so that's that part. We'll stop there. Okay, this is the engine remote, or the engine Morse control. The big lever does the gears, forward and reverse. The little lever is the throttle. Okay, and on Nimbus it's a bit back to front. If the big lever goes back, you go forward into the neutral position, and if you go forwards, the boat goes backwards. Okay, and back up into the neutral position. And this is the throttle. That's full throttle. And if you push it right back, the engine will just die out. There's no stop switch as such for the engine. You just throttle back until the motor dies. It's a bit of an act, and it's going to take you a little while to figure out where the sweet spot is for the engine just to idle away. So when it first starts up, you don't want it to rev up too much because it's cold. Okay, so it's not that hard, and we'll do it now. So what I do is I make sure it's out of gear in the middle, and I give it mostly, not flat out, but mostly, you know, say 3/4 throttle, and that's probably the place to start. And then I get my paring knife.
Yeah, we're just coming back, right?
And
cool.
When it fires, what I'll do is I'll just adjust the revs so that it's not revving its nuts off.